All right, so we're taking a deep dive today into Bill Gates. And
Yeah.
wow, you've given us a lot to dig into. It's not just the tech stuff or the whole billionaire thing. It's like
Well,
you want to get to know the guy, you know? Like really understand Bill Gates, the person.
it is interesting, isn't it? I mean, everyone has this image in their head.
Totally.
The tech genius turned philanthropist.
Yeah.
But with all this material you've sent over, it feels like we're going deeper this time. Trying to figure out what makes him tick, you know?
Exactly. And maybe the best place to start is with that image everyone has. Bill Gates, the classic computer nerd. You even included that story, it's almost legendary, about him jumping over chairs in meetings back at Microsoft.
You know what's funny about that story? It's not just a funny story. When you think about it, that image of him jumping over chairs says something about how he thinks. It's like he's literally thinking outside the box, like physically even. He was never afraid to be different, to go his own way. That's always been a part of him.
I never thought about it that way. It's like I say, don't underestimate the quiet ones, right? But then you see this other side too. We can't forget about how ruthlessly competitive he was. You sent a ton of stuff about that whole thing with Intuit, trying to buy them out. It really shows you how Gates used power, how he thought about power.
That whole Intuit thing, it's really a sign of things to come. It's like a sneak peek at what we're dealing with in tech even now. It wasn't just about buying a company, it was about controlling the whole game. Gates, he knew how important that personal finance software was going to be, how huge it could be. He wanted it all for Microsoft.
Which is where Gary Reback comes in. He was the lawyer going toe-to-toe with Gates, basically saying Microsoft was trying to shut down any competition.
Exactly. Reback's argument was all about Microsoft using Windows, which everyone had to have, to take over anything new and important, like that personal finance software. It's a huge case, a turning point. And you know what? We're hearing those same arguments today about monopolies and all that, but now it's Google, Amazon, the whole gang.
So it's not even history repeating, it's like they're using the same playbook. We got to talk about the work culture at Microsoft back then, too. Some of the stories you found from people who worked there, intense is an understatement. What was it like under Gates' leadership?
You got to remember back then, especially in that early tech world, there was this whole romance around working crazy hours, pushing everything to the limit. Like, you weren't really succeeding if you weren't burning out, you know?
And that kind of thinking, it takes a toll. Makes you wonder where the line is between pushing for something great and just a toxic workplace.
Yeah, that's a question people are still trying to figure out, right?
Yeah.
Especially with these tech companies, they've got so much power now.
Which brings us to like this whole other side of Bill Gates, right? He goes from software superstar to like global health guru. It's wild.
It's quite a turn, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you found so much about the Gates Foundation.
A ton.
What gets me is how big they think. This isn't just like, let's give some money away.
Yeah.
They want to change the world, especially with vaccines.
Okay, but is that really what it is? Like, did he just become the world's doctor overnight? There's been some pushback on the Gates Foundation too, right?
Oh, for sure. And this is where, like, how they do things gets interesting. Imagine this. Regular charities like you give money to help your local hospital, right?
Right.
Gates Foundation, they're out there building a whole new hospital system, funding the craziest medical discoveries.
Wow.
They see a problem, boom, gotta fix it. But they're playing at a whole other level, taking risks most people wouldn't even dream of.
So it's not just money, it's them deciding what matters most.
Exactly, which was where some people say, hold on, who put you in charge? You know, like, are they ignoring solutions that are already working just because they want to do things their way?
Fascinating. Okay, we've talked about like the Bill Gates image, tech guy, good guy, giving money away. But then you dug up this other stuff about how carefully he controls his image. That's when things got really interesting, this whole Gates Ventures thing. Seriously, it's like something out of a movie.
Next level PR, that's for sure. We're not talking about just making sure he looks good in photos.
All right.
They're involved in everything. Even down to, like you said, what books he's reading when someone snaps a picture.
Are you serious? They pick out the books? Like, what's the strategy there?
That's the question, isn't it? It makes you think, how much of what we see is really him, you know?
Right.
It's this whole debate about image, how much power someone should have over their story, even if they're giving billions away.
Especially with all the crazy stuff that gets said online. I mean, we can't forget about the conspiracy theories, microchips, stuff about the pandemic.
Yeah.
It all got blamed on Bill Gates.
It's a good reminder that just because someone's rich and trying to do good doesn't mean everyone trusts them. If anything, Gates has become like this symbol of everything people are worried about.
You know, it's funny how all this talk about image about someone controlling their story. It always comes back to this bigger question. Money, power. What does it all really mean? Like the American dream, all that. And that story you found about that couple, Catherine Kavess and Vignesh Seshadri,
Oh, right.
they're dealing with that head on.
It's like everyone knows that story deep down, don't they? You've got these two trying to make a good life, but it's like the goalposts keep moving further away. Makes you wonder, has the whole work hard and you'll make it thing, has it become a fairy tale?
And Bill Gates is like right in the middle of that whole debate, isn't he? He's like the poster boy for what's possible, but also all the messed up stuff about it.
Totally. On the one hand, he's saying, tax me more, I can handle it. Which, okay, good for him.
Right.
But then you got the lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
That house alone, the private planes. It's like, how do you square those two things?
Exactly. It's that billionaire paradox we keep coming back to. Like, even if you give away billions, does it really change anything? Or does it just prove the system's rigged in the first place?
Man, that's a tough one. Does it fix the problem? Or just show you how big the problem really is? I don't know. Something to think about.
For sure. Well, we've gone pretty deep on Bill Gates today. But if you had to guess 10, 20 years from now, what will people remember most about him? Like, what's the headline?
Oh man, that's the billion-dollar question. Will it be the Gates Foundation?
Yeah.
All that health stuff they're trying to do? Maybe climate change? He's really into that now. Or maybe something totally different. Every time you think you know the guy, he switches it up.
He does, doesn't he? We started out wanting to figure out the guy behind the billions.
Right.
And I gotta say, I think we've got more questions now than when we started. But hey, maybe that's a good thing.
There's always more to learn, right? That's what makes these deep dives so interesting. You really get you thinking.
I'm with you on that. Until next time, everybody.